silence of deep space pressed against the hull of the patrol vessel like a living thing. Officer Kelrin sat at her station, 3 of her 4 eyes tracking the scan displays while the 4th watched the viewport. Nothing ever happened this far out. The edge sectors were punishment duty, quiet, cold, and forgotten. That's why the signal made her flinch. It came through sharp and clean, cutting through 20,000 years of static. Kelrin's claws hovered over the console, trembling. She knew that frequency. Every child in the Galactic Concord learned it in history modules. It was human. But humans were gone. She ran the scan again. The signal strengthened. Somewhere in the darkness ahead, something massive was moving. Kelrin's breathing quickened as the computer assembled the data. The shape that emerged on her screen didn't match any known vessel class. It was too large. Too old. Its hull bore markings that predated the Concorde itself. "Command, this is Patrol 79, she transmitted, her voice barely steady. "I have contact. Unknown vessel. Broadcasting on human frequencies." The response took minutes. When it came, the voice was tight with disbelief. "Repeat your last, 79. "Human frequencies, command. I'm reading a vessel approximately 8 kilometers in length. Hull composition matches pre-silence era construction. It's transmitting a repeating message. Stand by." Kelrin didn't stand by. She couldn't. Her hands moved across the console, isolating the transmission. The message was simple, a series of numbers and symbols that her computer struggled to translate. Old Earth mathematics. Old Earth language. Words that hadn't been spoken aloud in 200 centuries. The translation finally appeared, "We remain." Her third heart skipped a beat. The humans had sacrificed themselves during the Breach War. Everyone knew the story. When the Devourers came, those nightmare things from the dark between galaxies, humanity threw themselves into the gap. They detonated their sun. They collapsed their own star system into a weapon so terrible it killed the enemy and themselves in the same instant of blinding light. The galaxy mourned them. Built monuments. Taught their children that humanity died so others could live. But if this ship was real. 7-9, fall back to rally point Theta. Do not approach the contact. Repeat, do not approach. Kelrin's claws tightened on the controls. The massive ship hung in the darkness ahead, its surface scarred by unimaginable age. Lights flickered deep within its structure, faint like embers that refused to die. She should obey. Should retreat. Should let someone else make this discovery official. Instead, she whispered into the comm, "This is Patrol Officer Kelrin of the Galactic Concord. If you can hear this, we receive your message. We remain too." For a long moment nothing changed. Space held its breath. Then the ship responded. Not with words. With light. The entire vessel blazed awake, section by section, until it burned against the void like a newborn star. Kelrin's screens exploded with data. Life signs. Thousands of them. Power signatures that dwarfed anything the Concorde had built in 5 centuries. And a new message transmitted in flawless galactic standard. Request docking clearance for diplomatic envoy. Humanity has returned. Kelrin sat frozen, staring at words that rewrote everything she thought she knew about the universe. Behind her, alarms began to sound. Command was screaming through the comm. Other ships were jumping in, their captains demanding explanations she couldn't give. She looked at the ghost ship, no, not a ghost ship anymore, and understood with terrible clarity what was about to happen. The Concorde had abandoned Earth. She'd read the classified files once, during Academy training. When humanity called for help during the first Devourer attacks, the Council had voted to quarantine the sector instead. Too dangerous. Too costly. Better to let one species die than risk the many. Humanity hadn't just sacrificed themselves. They'd been sacrificed. And now they were back. Officer Kelrin. The voice on the comm was different now, older, weighted with authority. You will maintain position and establish communication protocols. The Council is en route. Do not provoke. Do not promise. Do not. The human ship moved. Not violently. Almost gently. It drifted forward until it filled Kelrin's entire viewport, close enough that she could see the names etched into its hull. Thousands of names. Millions. Every human who had ever lived, carved into metal that had survived the death of stars. A new message appeared on her screen. We do not seek war, Officer Kelrin. We seek answers. And perhaps, understanding. She read those words 3 times before her shaking hand reached for the reply key. Whatever happened next would change the galaxy forever. The Council chamber had never been so quiet. Kelrin stood at attention in the center of the vast circular room, surrounded by representatives from 47 species. Above her, holographic displays showed the human vessel. Still waiting, still silent, still impossibly real. High Counselor Vexith spoke first, his voice carefully neutral. Officer Kelrin, your initial report has been reviewed. We need absolute clarity. You are certain the vessel is crewed by living humans? Yes, Counselor. Bioscans confirmed it. Approximately 15,000 life signs. Human baseline physiology with minor variations. They're alive. A ripple of sound moved through the chamber, clicks, hums, whispers in a dozen languages. Vexith raised one clawed hand for silence. Minor variations? Kelrin's throat felt dry. They've adapted, sir. Enhanced bone density. Increased radiation resistance. Modifications that suggest they've been living in difficult conditions for a very long time. Impossible, someone muttered from the upper galleries. The breach consumed everything. We detected the detonation. Earth's star collapsed exactly as predicted. Then explain the ship, Kelrin said, then immediately regretted her tone. But Vexith only gestured for her to continue. Sir, their vessel predates the silence. The hull materials, the design, it's from before the war. They left before the detonation. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Counselor Mresh spoke, her voice thin with age. She was Vothari, one of the few species old enough to remember the breach war firsthand. Some of them knew. Some of them saw what was coming and ran. Not ran, Kelrin said quietly. Survived. Vexith's expression darkened. You overstep, officer. With respect, sir, they sent a diplomatic envoy request. They could have attacked. Could have broadcast their return across every comm channel in the galaxy. Instead they asked permission to dock. They're following our protocols. Because they're planning something, a voice called out. Humans were always clever. This is a trick. Kelrin felt anger flash through her chest. Or maybe they just want to talk. About what? Vexith leaned forward, his eyes hard. What could they possibly want after 20,000 years? The question hung in the air until the chamber doors opened. A human walked in. Kelrin had seen images, of course. Every student studied the extinct species. But holos and historical files couldn't capture the presence of the real thing. The human was tall, taller than Kelrin expected, with dark skin and eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a single glance. She wore no armor, no weapons. Just a simple gray uniform marked with symbols Kelrin didn't recognize. She walked to the center of the chamber like she owned it. My name is Commander Ashera Kinte, she said in perfect galactic standard. Her voice carried without amplification, clear and strong. I represent the Eternal Fleet. We come in peace, but we do not come seeking forgiveness. Vexith found his voice first. Commander Kinte, on behalf of the Galactic Concord, we welcome you. Though I confess we have many questions. I imagine you do. Ashara's smile didn't reach her eyes. You believed we were extinct. You mourned us, built monuments, taught your children that humanity burned itself to ashes saving the galaxy. She paused. That's partially true. Partially? Mresh's voice cracked. We did sacrifice Earth. We did collapse our sun. The Devourers were real and the weapon we built killed them. Ashara's hands clasped behind her back. But we're not fools, counselors. We saw the quarantine. We intercepted your transmissions. We knew you voted to abandon us. The chamber erupted. Denials, accusations, demands for proof. Ashera stood motionless while chaos swirled around her, waiting. Vexith finally restored order with a sharp crack of his gavel. Those were different times, he said carefully. The Concord faced an impossible choice. You faced a difficult choice, Ashera corrected. Impossible would have been what we faced. But we made our choice too. We evacuated who we could. Loaded them onto every ship that could fly. Generation vessels. Colony arcs. Science stations. Anything with engines and life support. Her voice hardened. And we ran. Not away, we ran deep. Into the dark places between spiral arms. Into regions your charts still mark as unnavigable. We survived because we had to. Because no one else would help us. Kelrin felt something crack in her chest. The history modules had never mentioned evacuation attempts. Never mentioned humans asking for help. 20,000 years, Mresh whispered. You've been out there for 20,000 years? Building, learning, adapting, remembering. Ashera turned slowly, meeting the gaze of every counselor in turn. We didn't come back for revenge despite what you might fear. We came back because the galaxy is about to need us again. Vexith went very still. Explain. The Devourers weren't a single threat. They were scouts. Ashara's words fell like stones into deep water. We've detected gravitational anomalies in 17 sectors. The same signatures we recorded before Earth died. Something's coming, counselors. Something bigger than last time. And when it arrives, the Concorde won't survive it alone. You expect us to believe. I expect you to scan the data we're transmitting. Ashara gestured, and holographic displays flickered to life throughout the chamber. Mathematical models. Sensor readings. Evidence that made several counselors gasp. You have 6 months. Maybe less. After that, everything you've built since the silence will start to die. Kelrin watched the data scroll past, her mind's racing. If this was real, why tell us? Vexith demanded. Why warn us at all? Ashara's expression softened for the first time. Because despite everything, humanity never stopped believing the galaxy was worth saving. Even when the galaxy didn't believe in us. She turned toward the exit, then paused. The question isn't whether you trust us, counselors. The question is whether you can afford not to. The doors closed behind her, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The observation deck was empty except for Kelrin and Commander Kinte. Below them, the human vessel hung in space like a monument to impossible endurance. Kelrin had requested this meeting through official channels, half expecting rejection. Instead, Ashara had responded within the hour. You wanted to talk, Ashara said, her eyes on the stars. Off the record. Kelrin's claws flexed nervously. I read the classified files. The ones they don't show Academy students. I know what the Council did. I know they received your distress calls. I know they voted to abandon Earth. She paused. I'm sorry. Ashara was quiet for a long moment. You weren't born yet. Neither were your parents or their parents. Why apologize for choices you didn't make? Because someone should. Kelrin moved closer to the viewport. The monuments we built, they're lies, aren't they? We didn't honor your sacrifice. We just tried to forget our guilt. Maybe. But guilt's a start. Ashara finally looked at her. Do you believe us? About what's coming? I ran the numbers myself. The gravitational signatures match. Whatever's out there. Kelrin's voice dropped. It's real. And it's enormous. 42 Devourers, Ashara said quietly. That's our best estimate. The first time Earth faced 3. We barely stopped them. This time they're sending an armada. Kelrin felt her blood turn cold. The Council's debating. They want verification from independent sources. They want committees to study the data. They want time we don't have. We know. That's why we're not waiting for permission. Ashara pulled a small device from her pocket. A data chip, ancient by modern standards but still functional. This contains everything. Chip designs. Weapon specifications. The mathematics behind the stellar collapse weapon. Everything humanity learned fighting the Devourers the first time. You're giving us your weapons technology? We're giving you a chance. Ashara pressed the chip into Kelrin's hand. The Council will take weeks to decide. By then, the Devourers will be in inhabited space. But if you leak this to the right people, scientists, military analysts, anyone who'll listen, maybe they'll start preparing before it's too late. Kelrin stared at the chip. This is treason. If they find out I distributed classified human technology, they'll court-martial you, strip your rank, maybe imprison you. Ashara's expression was hard but understanding. I'm not asking lightly, officer. I'm asking because you're the only person in that chamber who looked at us like we were people instead of problems. Why not just broadcast it? Force the issue. Because that would be an act of war. It would prove every paranoid counselor right, that humanity came back to conquer, not to help. Ashara turned back to the viewport. We won't force you to trust us. But if you choose to, if you decide the galaxy matters more than protocol, we'll stand beside you. The way you should have stood beside us 20,000 years ago. Kelrin closed her hand around the chip. She thought of her homeworld. Her clutch mates. The billions of lives that depended on decisions made in chambers far away by people who moved too slowly. How long do we really have? She asked. 4 months. Maybe 5 if we're lucky. Ashara's reflection in the viewport looked tired. Ancient. The Devourers move through dark matter currents. They're already closer than the sensors show. By the time the Council finishes debating, half the outer colonies will be gone. And if we prepare? If we use your technology? Then maybe we survive. Maybe we do what the Concorde should have done 20,000 years ago, stand together. Ashara's voice roughened. We didn't spend 200 centuries hiding in the dark just to watch the galaxy burn. We came back to fight. With you or without you. But it would be easier with you. Kelrin made her decision. I'll distribute the data. Quietly. Through research channels. Military back channels. Anonymous drops to scientists who'll recognize what they're seeing. She met Ashara's eyes. And when the council finds out, when they come for me, I'll tell them I did it because someone needed to care more about lives than politics. Something like respect flickered across Ashara's face. You're braver than most of them, officer. I'm terrified, Kelrin admitted. But I'm also tired of living in a galaxy built on comfortable lies. Ashara extended her hand, the old human gesture of alliance. Kelrin clasped it carefully, mindful of the difference in their physiologies. 2 species. 2 histories. 1 fragile moment of trust. When this is over, Ashara said, when we've stopped what's coming, the galaxy's going to have to reckon with its past. With what was done to Earth. With 20,000 years of survival we endured alone. What will humanity want? Justice. Reparations. Truth. Ashara's grip tightened slightly. Just truth. Let the next generation grow up knowing what really happened. Not monuments to noble sacrifice. Not stories of martyrs who smiled while burning. The real story. Abandonment. Survival. And the choice we're making now, to help anyway. Kelrin nodded slowly. I can't promise the council will change. Can't promise they'll ever admit what they did. Then we'll build something better than the council. Something that doesn't sacrifice entire species when the choice gets hard. Ashara released her hand. The Eternal Fleet didn't survive 20,000 years just to repeat old mistakes. We came back to build a different galaxy. One worth saving. And we're going to need people like you to help us do it. Below them, the human vessel began to move. Not away toward. Dozens of smaller craft detached from its hull, spreading out like seeds on a stellar wind. Each one carried technology, knowledge, warnings. Each one represented humanity's refusal to let the galaxy die in ignorance. Kelrin watched them go, the data chip warm in her palm. They're going to every inhabited system, aren't they? She asked. Every one we can reach before the Devourers arrive. Ashara smiled, genuinely this time, fierce and determined. The council can debate all they want. Humanity's already chosen our side. We're not asking permission anymore. We're just doing what we've always done. What's that? Surviving. And making sure as many others survive with us. 4 months later, when the first Devourer tore through the Veil Nebula, it encountered something unexpected. Not unprepared colonies. Not panicked defense fleets. Not a galaxy caught sleeping. It encountered 47 species fighting as one, armed with human weapons and human strategies, standing together in the darkness. And for the first time in cosmic history, the Devourers learned what humanity had known for 20,000 years. Sometimes the abandoned become the saviors. Sometimes the forgotten become the shield. And sometimes, the ones left to die alone return just in time to teach the galaxy what survival really means.